boyfriend, thought I was in love, 18, um, and he crushed me. He crushed my soul. Uh, Decided to hook up with other people. And I was in denial for a very long time. Um, but then one night, I'll never forget watching Pirates of the Caribbean. And, I decided I couldn't take it anymore. I couldn't take the lies, the cheating, the fakeness of everyone around me. And, I attempted suicide. That felt like the only way out. And long and behold, that boyfriend at the time found me, took me to the ER, and saved my life. Went through a lot of therapy. And the shirt at the time said I had two choices. It can help me out of the military, or it can get me the help I need to stay in. And so I knew I didn't want to get out. So I got the help I needed to stay in. And that was the choice I made. And I can't even explain the type of emotions or feelings I had throughout that process. Because it was like scraping down everything who I thought I was to try to discover who I truly was. And finding out who my true friends were and like who actually cared and loved Blythe Micah at the time. And I'll tell you, there wasn't many, but I was okay with it. I was okay with it because you only need one person to have your back, one person to hear your truth, one person to support you. That's all you need. I don't care what anyone says. You don't need a crowd. So I found about three. One was my mom. And I made healthy relationships for the first time, probably my whole life. I just didn't realize it until I hit rock bottom. It took me that to realize that. And it was a good feeling, after everything was said and done, to kind of figure out or try to start finding who I was. And I couldn't have done without those people. I really couldn't. I can't explain, and I'm sure other people may have felt it, but to tell yourself that you don't want to do this anymore and then go through with trying to make that a reality, it's rough. It's rough.
Wow, that is so tough. That's even hard to hear, just knowing you now and picturing you in that kind of moment, that kind of weakness. And they
Mm-hmm.
say suicide attempts are just that. They're in that moment.
They are.
If you can get that person through that moment, they have a good chance of, surviving and moving on in their life and learning these coping skills. So it's scary when that moment happens, and you're just so vulnerable that you get broke down to nothing, like you said. When you initially woke up, what was going through your head?
I'm gonna be frank. I was mad. I was so mad because that's not what I wanted. At that moment in time, that's not what I wanted. I did not want to wake up, you know. Um, but then that kind of turned into shame. Shame that I allowed myself get there. If that makes any sense. Shame that I didn't do what I should have done to prevent that from happening. But when something like that happens, like you say, it's in the moment, your mind is so focused on what got you to that moment. If that makes it, the thought that it's just a moment isn't true, because it feels like you're drowning and you can't get up. You can't get to shore. So you don't even think that's a possibility. If
Wow.
that makes sense.
How do you make that switch in your head then? How do you go from that to having hope?
A lot of patience, a lot of therapy, a lot of people who trust you, to find a way to deal with it. Therapy, learning how to deal with it. That's really ultimately what it comes down to. Okay, you kind of learn what that rock bottom is, like what that daunting, scary feeling is, and then you find ways, or learn ways to cope. You learn ways to cope.
Wow. And one of those ways to learn to cope is understanding that most things are temporary. Do you want to talk about that?
Absolutely. I kind of hit on it a little bit, but like sometimes people get focused on what's going on in the moment and don't realize that it's just a moment. It's just a moment in your life. In your life, if we are blessed enough to have a long life, is you got time to learn, you got time to make choices, you got time to cope, you got time to deal, and you got people there hopefully in your corner, right? So